Have you ever noticed that some incredibly intelligent people, with impressive degrees and extensive networks, remain financially strapped and unhappy? Conversely, there are individuals with little formal education, meager resumes, and seemingly limited opportunities who amass fortunes and live in abundance. It seems contradictory, doesn't it? But I've discovered the secret isn't talent, intelligence, or luck. It's a habit. A single habit that changes everything. People believe they need something new, a groundbreaking technique, an unrevealed secret, but the truth is, it's not novelty that transforms lives, it's repetition. I learned this through experience, not books. Because no matter how many lectures you attend or courses you complete, if you don't repeat, and repeat until the knowledge becomes ingrained, it's all lost, like water slipping through your fingers. It's like a flash fire, it ignites quickly, blazes brightly, then vanishes in an instant. Have you noticed how often you start enthusiastically with a new idea, only to revert to old habits just days later? It wasn't a lack of willpower, it was a lack of repetition. I remember discovering Earl Nightingale's recording. It was a message about attitude. I listened once, twice, 10 times, countless times. But it wasn't until hundreds of repetitions that I truly grasped his message. For years, I thought, of course, I understand this. But the truth was, I understood nothing. I had only heard it. There's a monumental difference between hearing something and internalizing it to the point where it becomes second nature. How many times have you told yourself, "Oh, I already know that"? Yet you remain stuck in the same financial situation, plagued by the same fears, achieving the same results. Intellectual understanding isn't enough. You must repeat until you feel it. I spent years failing, broke, directionless. When I finally decided to follow my mentor's instructions, it wasn't because he gave me a magic formula, but because he said, repeat this every day until there's no room for doubt. I found it absurd at first. But I obeyed. And it was repetition that shattered my old mental programming and propelled me from $4,000 a year to more than $175,000 in a matter of months. It wasn't luck, it wasn't chance, it was repetition. Science now confirms this. Neuroscience studies show the brain creates new synaptic connections when something is repeated consistently. This is how new habits are formed. In other words, it's not magic, it's biology. Yet, how often do you fail to repeat what could change your life, while repeating every day the same worries, the same thoughts of scarcity, the same phrases like, "This isn't for me," or "I can't do it"? Have you noticed that repetition works both ways? If you repeat negative thoughts, that's what takes root. If you repeat positive beliefs, that's what will guide your life. I recall sitting alone, listening for the 1,000th time to that same Earl Nightingale audio. I thought, why keep listening to something I know by heart? But suddenly, during one of those repetitions, the words hit me like never before. It was as if he'd etched the message directly onto my heart. I felt it. And in that instant, everything changed. It was as if I'd removed a blindfold I'd worn my entire life. Have you experienced that? That moment when something you already knew suddenly makes sense in a transformative way. That's why I say, if you don't cultivate the habit of conscious repetition, you're doomed to unconsciously repeat what you don't want. The question is, what will you choose to repeat? The complaint about bills not balancing, or the idea that you're capable of creating abundance? The memory of failures, or the vision of the future you want to build? Your results today aren't a product of what you did once. They're a product of what you've been repeating every day. I want you to try an experiment. Choose a simple affirmation, like, "I am capable of achieving prosperity." Repeat it aloud 50 times a day for a week. Observe how your mind resists, how it tries to tell you it's a lie, that it doesn't work. This resistance is proof you're confronting old programming. Keep repeating. Because, in time, you'll notice something extraordinary. The thought that seemed forced begins to feel natural. And when that happens, your behavior will change. And when your behavior changes, your results will have no choice but to change as well. Now tell me, how many of you will actually do this experiment? Most will find it interesting, but will put it off. And later never comes. But a few, just a few, will commit. And it will be those few who will experience the difference between drifting aimlessly and living in control. So, the decision is before you. Will you continue repeating old patterns, or will you choose to repeat what can finally transform your life? Doubt is like silent rust, slowly corroding your dreams until you convince yourself they were never possible. How many times have you said to yourself, "What if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough?" Doubt seems rational, even a form of protection. But in practice, it's one of the greatest thieves of your life. I experienced this firsthand. When I started dreaming of speaking before audiences, doubt paralyzed me. I was afraid to open my mouth in front of 5 people. I trembled at the thought of others' judgment. I hid behind the excuse that I was shy, withdrawn, reserved. But the truth was, doubt was louder than my faith in myself. I'll never forget the day I saw Bill Gove speaking to over 1,000 people. I was at the back of the room, observing. He seemed free, self-assured, repeating a phrase that never left my mind: "If I want to be free, I need to be myself. Not what others think I should be." As he said this, I felt the weight of all the times I'd hidden, the times I'd held back, the times I'd given up trying. And I realized, doubt isn't real, it's just a thin veil we place before our own eyes. Science has shown this. Researchers at Stanford University observed that people who believe more in their own abilities not only achieve greater professional success but also live longer, carrying less stress and more confidence. In other words, doubt doesn't just delay your dreams, it also consumes your health. How many sleepless nights have you spent tossing and turning, imagining every possible scenario of failure? And in the end, none of it happened, but the emotional toll was already taken. I had to confront this head-on. When I decided to learn public speaking, my desire to share my ideas was immense, but my doubt was even greater. I remember standing before my first audience, hands sweating, voice faltering. Everything inside me said, "You can't do this." And yet, I continued. It was in that moment that I understood something essential: doubt doesn't disappear before action. It's action that dissolves doubt. Waiting to feel completely confident before acting is the biggest trap there is. Think with me, how many opportunities have you let slip because you didn't think you were ready? How many relationships have you not experienced because you doubted yourself? How many businesses have you never attempted because you believed you lacked the ability? Doubt convinced you it was prudence, but it was actually disguised fear. And repeated fear, day after day, becomes an invisible prison. I learned to replace doubt with a habit, acting even when my heart still trembles. It wasn't courage, it was decision. And each time I took action, no matter how small, I realized the giant of doubt dissipated like smoke. It's like entering a dark room. You can stay outside imagining monsters lurking inside, or you can simply turn on the light. Doubt only seems powerful when you feed it with inertia. There's a statistic that might surprise you. According to research from the American Psychological Association, more than 70% of people experience what's called imposter syndrome, which is precisely the belief that they are not good enough, even when they've already achieved results. In other words, doubt doesn't discriminate. It affects renowned professionals, artists, entrepreneurs, parents, everyone. The difference lies in who decides to persevere despite it. If you start today to identify when doubt arises and choose a small act contrary to it, you'll notice something extraordinary. Perhaps doubt says, "You can't save money, you've never been good with finances." Then, instead of giving in, you set aside just $10. It seems insignificant, but it's an act of rebellion against doubt. This small gesture sends a powerful message to the subconscious: I am in control. I remember once, before going on stage in Atlanta, doubt screaming inside me, "They won't listen to you. You're not as good as the other speakers." And for a moment, I thought about giving up. But I took that first step onto the stage. When I looked at those hundreds of eyes watching me, something happened. The doubt lost its power. Because I was there. Because I acted. And in the end, I realized that not only did I succeed, but I helped people who needed that message. So I ask, how many more times will you allow doubt to dictate your life? How many doors will you leave closed because you don't feel ready? Doubt won't disappear on its own. But you can choose, right now, to act despite it. Do that, and you'll realize that doubt was never the enemy. The enemy has always been your choice to believe in her. People spend their lives waiting for the right moment, as if there were a perfect alignment of circumstances that would one day appear, and then everything would make sense. But I'll tell you something that might hurt to hear: that moment will never come. I started my first cleaning business without understanding absolutely anything about business. I had no experience, no training, no contacts. All I had were 2 buckets, a mop, and the willingness to begin. And yet, in less than a year, I went from earning $4,000 a year to $175,000. Can you imagine the shock that was for me? The secret wasn't knowledge, it wasn't luck, it wasn't waiting. The secret was starting even without being ready. How many opportunities have slipped through your fingers because you told yourself, "It's not the right time yet"? How many times have you believed you needed another course, another certification, another push, another sign from the universe? All the time you're waiting to be ready, but you never realize that it's precisely the act of starting that prepares you. It's like driving a car at night. You only see a few meters ahead with your headlights, but it's enough to get to your destination. You don't need to see the whole road to continue your journey. I clearly remember my routine in the beginning. I washed the floor of a single office and earned $30 a month. It was almost nothing. But instead of looking at that as something small, I focused on delivering the best possible work. And it was precisely that small step that opened the doors to other contracts. Soon I was cleaning offices in Toronto, Montreal, Boston, Atlanta, even London, England. That humble work, which many would consider insignificant, led me to live in countries I would never have dreamed of. It wasn't the perfect plan, it was the imperfect action that moved me forward. If you look at big names in recent history, you'll see the same pattern. Steve Jobs dropped out of college with no idea how he would found one of the world's largest companies. J.K. Rowling started writing Harry Potter as a single mother, penniless, scribbling ideas on napkins in Edinburgh cafes. If they had waited for the right moment, they might never have changed the world. And have you ever stopped to think how many incredible ideas die every day because people believe they need to be better prepared before taking the first step? Science also proves this. Researchers at the University of Cambridge discovered that people who take calculated risks, even when they don't feel 100% ready, are 40% more likely to achieve financial and professional success. In other words, it's not preparation that guarantees the result, it's the willingness to act. Of course, knowledge is important, but it only makes sense when applied. True confidence comes from practice, not from waiting. I myself faced the fear of looking ridiculous. When I told friends that I was starting a cleaning business, many laughed. "You? With buckets and mops? Are you going to get rich that way?" They didn't believe, and I didn't have all the answers myself. But I had one certainty: I didn't want to stay in the same place. So I took the step. And each step showed me the next. Have you noticed that when you start to move, opportunities appear? It's as if life is waiting for you to prove that you're truly committed. And here's an important point: starting without being ready doesn't mean acting irresponsibly. It means recognizing that you will never have all the pieces of the puzzle before you begin. You build confidence as you walk. It's like learning to swim. You don't learn by reading books by the pool. You learn by getting into the water. So I leave a challenge for you: choose a project that you've been postponing. It can be small, it doesn't matter. Something you always say, "One day I'll do it." And start. It doesn't matter if it's writing the first page of a book, saving the first symbolic amount, making the first sales call, opening the first profile to promote your work. Do it today, even if your mind says you're not prepared. Because when you do, you'll discover that the missing preparation was hidden in the action you were avoiding. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready. And if you keep postponing, you'll discover one day that you spent years preparing for a race that never started. The right moment is not tomorrow, it's not when you have more money, it's not when you feel confident. The right moment is now. Because it is in the now that your life truly happens. There's an invisible weight that holds most people back: the need to fit in. From an early age we are conditioned to believe that we need to meet the expectations of others. We do what our parents expect, what society considers appropriate, what friends think is normal. But in the midst of this process, we forget the most important question of all: who am I really? I discovered this in the hardest way. I was at a conference, sitting in the back of a huge room, watching Bill Gates speak to more than 1,000 people. He said, "If I want to be free, I need to be me. Not what you think I should be, not what my wife thinks, not what my children think. If I want to be free, I need to be me." That hit me like a sharp blade. Because, until that moment, I realized that I had spent years trying to be what others found acceptable. I worked in jobs I didn't like, I tried to behave in ways that didn't represent me, just to be accepted. But inside I knew, I wasn't being myself. And it was at that moment that I understood that there is no freedom without authenticity. Have you ever felt that? Have you noticed that you often keep quiet so as not to displease? That you give up dreams because you fear judgment? That you live a life that doesn't seem like yours? This is more common than you think. Research by psychologist Brené Brown showed that more than 70% of people admit to hiding important parts of who they really are to avoid rejection. In other words, most people live behind masks. And the price of that is high. Because when you're not yourself, life becomes heavy, relationships lose truth, and even success, if it comes, tastes bitter. I remember a time when I tried to please everyone. I said what people wanted to hear, I followed the path that seemed safest, and outwardly it even seemed like I was doing well. But inside I was empty. It was as if I were living someone else's life. When I saw Bill Gates on stage, I understood, I couldn't spend the rest of my life imprisoned in expectations. And that's when I made a decision: I would allow myself to be who I really was, even if it meant disappointing some around me. Look at the examples around us. Lady Gaga was ridiculed early in her career for her eccentricity. Many said she should be more normal, more acceptable. If she had given in, she might never have become a global icon, inspiring millions to embrace their own individuality. On the other hand, think of artists or entrepreneurs who built an image just to please and, years later, confessed to being in deep depression because they could no longer maintain the charade. When you deny who you are, the emotional price always arrives. The big question is, do you want to live a life of approval or a life of freedom? Because you'll hardly have both. What I've learned is that true abundance only comes when you decide to be yourself. Money, opportunities, the right relationships, all of that begins to flow when your energy is aligned with your truth. When you try to be what you're not, the universe notices, and life closes. But when you embrace your essence, doors begin to open where there were only walls before. I know it can be scary. I was also afraid of disappointing, of being rejected, of being judged. But I realized that the pain of not being myself was much greater than any criticism I could receive. And deep down, you know that too. Because nothing weighs more than living a life where you don't recognize yourself. So I want you to reflect now, in what areas of your life are you betraying yourself? Maybe at work, doing something that doesn't represent you. Maybe in relationships, hiding feelings or dreams. Maybe even in the way you dress, speak, or act, just to fit in. Ask yourself, who would I be if I weren't afraid of judgment? The answer to this question may be uncomfortable, but it is liberating. And I guarantee you, when you have the courage to be yourself, without masks, without excuses, life will begin to reward you in ways that seem impossible today. Because the world doesn't need more copies. The world needs you, exactly as you are. Many people believe that to earn more money you need to think only about money. I also believed this for a long time. But I discovered that this is one of the biggest traps. The real secret is not in chasing money, it's in falling in love with the idea of helping others. Because money is just a consequence of the value you generate. The day I understood this, everything changed. When I first got on stage, I was nervous, insecure, afraid of being judged. But my mentor told me, don't think about yourself. Think about the people who are there and how you can help them. This simple advice turned a key inside me. I realized that if I focused on giving my best to others, the insecurity disappeared. And maybe you've felt this too. Have you noticed that when you're too worried about what others will think of you, your energy gets blocked? You become stiff, nervous, insecure. But when you forget yourself and focus your attention on serving, contributing, truly improving someone's life, everything flows. This isn't just true for lectures, but for every area of life, work, home, relationships. If you ask yourself every day, how can I add value to someone's life today, you will inevitably attract more prosperity. Science confirms this. Research published in the Journal of Happiness Studies shows that people who perform acts of generosity, even small ones, exhibit higher levels of serotonin and dopamine, substances that regulate happiness and well-being. In other words, the more you help, the happier and more productive you become. And guess what? Happier and more productive people also tend to be more creative, and creativity is the root of prosperity. A powerful example of this is Oprah Winfrey. For years, she believed her role was to be a good television presenter. But her life truly transformed when she understood that her mission wasn't just to interview people, but to uplift their lives. She began using her voice and platform to impact millions around the world. And it was precisely this focus on helping that made her not only one of the most influential women, but also one of the richest on the planet. Money chased her because she was busy chasing service. I remember a significant experience. After a lecture, a woman approached me, tears in her eyes, and said, "What you said changed how I see my life. I was about to give up on my dreams, but now I have hope again." At that moment, I realized that nothing I could achieve numerically could compare to the impact of helping someone regain their faith. And ironically, it was precisely those moments of giving that multiplied my financial results. And you? How many times have you focused so much on wanting to earn more that you forgot to ask yourself how you could help more? Most people wake up in the morning worried only about their own bills, their own problems, their own desires. But true abundance comes when you reverse this logic and ask, what can I do today that will make someone's life better? It could be something small, like offering a genuine smile, sharing knowledge, providing a service with greater excellence. I want you to do a simple test. For a week, every day, choose one person and ask yourself, how can I add value to this person's life today? It doesn't have to be anything grand, just a genuine gesture of contribution. Do this without expecting immediate returns. But observe what happens. You'll notice a different energy begins to circulate around you. Opportunities appear, doors open, people start wanting to be around you. Because prosperity is magnetic. And the magnet that attracts it is precisely the habit of helping. When you fall in love with the idea of service, your life gains a deeper purpose. Work ceases to be a burden and becomes a channel of expression. Money ceases to be an obsession and becomes a consequence. And you discover something incredible. Happiness doesn't come after success, it comes in the process of contributing to the success of others. What I see most in people is this incessant search for momentary peaks of motivation. They read a book, get excited for a few days, attend a lecture, feel a burst of energy, but soon everything returns to normal. It's like being on a roller coaster, you go up fast, you go down even faster. But life doesn't change with peaks. Life changes when you create lasting results. And for that, it's not enough to feel motivated occasionally, you need to transform a new habit into part of your identity. I discovered this after years of trying to understand why some people changed and others didn't. I saw co-workers studying the same books, attending the same lectures as me, but their results didn't last. Meanwhile, mine were sustained and grew. The question that haunted me was, what was I doing differently? And the answer was in one simple word, repetition. I didn't just hear an idea, I repeated it until it became part of me. It's like learning to write your own name. At first it seems difficult, but after repeating it so many times, you never forget. When you repeat, what happens is that the brain creates new pathways. Neuroscience calls this neural plasticity. It means that the more you repeat a thought or action, the stronger the connections in your brain become. And when they become strong enough, they become automatic. That's why you don't need to think to drive, to brush your teeth, to walk. You simply do it. Now imagine applying this same process to thoughts of prosperity, confidence, and abundance. If today you need to strive to believe you can, with repetition, the time comes when believing becomes natural. I remember a time when I repeated a specific affirmation aloud every day: I am prosperous, I am creative. At first, it seemed ridiculous. Part of me laughed and said, "Who do you think you're fooling?" But I continued. And after a while, those words began to sound different. I no longer just said them with my mouth, I began to feel them. And it was at that point that I realized that something inside me had changed. Because they weren't just words, it was a new belief taking root. And maybe you're wondering, but does this really work? I say yes, and not just because of my experience. Studies by the American Psychological Association have shown that repeating positive affirmations daily reduces stress levels, increases self-confidence, and even improves academic and professional performance. It's science, not just philosophy. But here's the detail that most people don't understand: it's not repeating once or twice, it's repeating until it becomes part of who you are. I want you to think about how many times you repeat, without realizing it, phrases like, "I don't have money, I can't, this isn't for me." Every time you do this, you're reinforcing an identity. You're programming yourself to always live the same results. Now, if you have the courage to change the words, even if it seems strange at first, you will be reprogramming your mind to create different results. I usually propose a simple but powerful challenge. For 7 consecutive days, choose a short, positive affirmation. It could be, "I am capable of achieving prosperity." Repeat it aloud 50 times a day. Yes, 50. It's not to sound good, it's to engrave it in your mind. In the first few days, you will feel resistance. Your mind will scream that it doesn't make sense, that it's not true. But if you persist, you will notice something extraordinary: your way of thinking begins to change. And when your thinking changes, your behavior changes. When your behavior changes, your results change. I've seen people who applied this simple habit and transformed their lives in a matter of months. One of them was a young woman who told me she couldn't get out of debt. I asked her to repeat a prosperity affirmation daily and, along with that, adopt small, consistent actions of financial organization. At first, she thought it was silly. But in 6 months, she had not only gotten out of debt, but she started saving money. The secret wasn't magic, it was repetition. The biggest mistake most people make is giving up too soon. They want permanent results without permanent habits. But nothing in life works that way. The body only gets strong when you train regularly, not when you go to the gym once. The mind is the same. Lasting results come from lasting habits. So I ask you, are you willing to sustain a new habit long enough for it to become part of you? Because if you're not, you'll continue trapped on the roller coaster of fleeting motivation. But if you are, you will experience something that few people truly know: the stability of a life built on results that don't disappear. And when that happens, your life will never be the same again. There's a silent habit that determines whether you'll live a life of abundance or frustration: the habit of deciding quickly. Most people spend their entire lives waiting to have all the information, waiting for the opinions of others, waiting for the perfect moment before deciding. But the truth is that indecision is one of the greatest enemies of success. When you take a long time to decide, you lose energy, lose opportunities, and, worse yet, you feed doubt. I've learned that the most successful people aren't those who always get it right, but those who decide quickly and correct course along the way. I remember when I left the fire department to start my first business. Many thought I was crazy. I had no knowledge of administration, no experience in leadership, I knew nothing about the sector. But I decided. I didn't spend weeks thinking about the pros and cons, I didn't make dozens of lists. I simply decided and committed to making it work. And it was that quick decision that took me from a mediocre life to results that completely changed my destiny. Look at great examples from history. Thomas Edison, for example, failed thousands of times before he managed to invent the electric light bulb. If he had waited for certainty before acting, he would never have achieved the result. He used to say, "I didn't fail, I just found thousands of ways that don't work." The difference is that he decided quickly, tried, corrected, tried again. Now think how many projects, how many businesses, and even how many relationships you've missed out on because you were waiting for the certainty that never came. Science reveals a fascinating truth about decision-making. Harvard researchers found that people who take too long to decide tend to experience higher levels of stress, anxiety, and even regret. Conversely, those who make swift decisions and commit to action exhibit greater self-confidence and life satisfaction. It makes sense, indecision is a burden, while decision is a release of energy. I've experienced this firsthand in various aspects of my life. There was a time I had to decide whether to invest a significant portion of my savings in a personal development course. Part of me screamed, "What if you lose everything? What if it's a mistake?" But another voice urged, "Decide now." And I did. That choice accelerated my transformation in ways I never anticipated. Had I waited longer, I might still be stuck in an ordinary life. Now, I ask you, how many times have you told yourself, "I'll decide later"? How many opportunities have slipped through your fingers because you hesitated? And most curiously, when you delay a decision, someone else often decides for you and reaps the rewards that could have been yours. Indecision is costly. Therefore, I challenge you to a simple yet transformative exercise. For the next 7 days, commit to making quick decisions on small things. Don't spend 10 minutes choosing what to eat. Don't waste hours deciding what to wear. Don't postpone an important phone call until tomorrow. Decide. And observe how your mind begins to sharpen. This training in small decisions will prepare you to tackle bigger decisions with significantly more confidence. The habit of deciding quickly doesn't mean acting without thinking. It means not letting fear paralyze you. It means trusting yourself more than the worst-case scenarios your mind conjures to hold you back. Because ultimately, it's not the perfect decision that changes your life, it's the decision made and put into action. And each time you decide firmly, you send a clear message to the universe, "I am ready to receive more." Nothing changes until you change your habits. It's the repetition, the decision, the action, the authenticity, the elimination of doubt, and the commitment to lasting results that transform an ordinary life into an extraordinary one. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment, complete confidence, or the approval of others. You simply need to choose today which habit you will cultivate to build the future you desire. And now, if you want to continue this journey with me, the next video is already appearing on your screen. In it, we'll climb another rung on this ladder of wisdom, and I promise you'll leave at least 1% better than you are now. Thank you for being here with me, and I'll see you in the next video.